why does the thread break? In this video we will see the causes and the issues of the machine that make the thread break so much, why it snaps so often. So let's look at the tips or machine problems when the thread keeps breaking. In this case, it will be with a horizontal bobbin. Soon we'll see the same problem and solution for machines with a vertical bobbin. The first thing we need to do, the first tip, the first possible solution is the thread path. Many people don't know how to do this. They are sure that when the machine is threaded correctly, it won't cause any trouble. First issue, we must manually hold the thread and stretch the thread to see if it's coming through. If so, the tension discs shouldn't have any problem. The thread might be stuck, dirty or dusty, which prevents it from catching or retaining the thread, causing it to break. So we pull it manually and we see that the thread comes out freely without any opposition. We should also keep in mind that the machine should have a certain level of tension. Too much tension won't hold the thread properly. It won't pull hard enough or break it. But if it's too loose, the stitching will be completely loose. In the first step, we see the thread coming out normally. Second, the machine must be threaded correctly. Many people, depending on their horizontal bobbin machine, know how to thread it. The second thing we need to check is the needle. The needle must be in perfect condition. Properly placed, in this case threaded, the thread goes from the outside to the inside. We see the needle. The second point we need to consider, it must be in good condition. It can't be blunt or bent at the tip. If it's blunt or bent, it will break the thread or skip stitches. So the second step is the needle. The third step we'll see is to lift the presser foot and do this same with the bobbin case thread. Thread it completely, insert it and pull the thread manually. We can see that the thread comes out freely. If the thread gets stuck when we're pulling it manually, it means there's an issue with the tension spring of the bobbin case, or it's too tight, or the spool is bad, it's defective, and we need to change it. So we see that the thread should come out freely. Both the top and bottom tensions should come out freely. Now, if the thread keeps breaking, we'll start with the other elements involved that we'll analyze. Let's start looking at these parts and go piece by piece. Well, once we've taken out all the involved pieces that could break the thread, we'll continue with the bobbin. Let's take out the spool or the bobbin. Let's make sure that the bobbin or spool, which is this, must be in good condition. It can't be too bent or wavy, and the spool shouldn't have any sharp edges or burrs. For the parts we're going to look at, including the bobbin that could have sharp edges or burrs that could break the thread, we'll use this sandpaper number 550 to remove those edges or burrs in case the spool has them and we see it's rough.
We are not doing it in both directions. We are only going to do it several times in one direction towards where the edge is, which carries the angle of the edge or the burr. We can't do it sideways because then we'll take off more. We should do it towards the angle where the edge goes. Doing it like this until we remove the edge or burr, including the other involved pieces, then we move on. We discard the bobbin, that is okay. No edge and not bent or twisted, as it also causes skipped stitches and thread breakage. Moving on to the bobbin case. Being a plastic bobbin case, it wears out more than a metal one. So because it's plastic, it wears out more. But remember that the thread goes to the spring. We also need to check the bobbin case, the spring too, that it doesn't have edges, burrs, or wear on the plastic part, and that prevents thread breakage. So the thread comes out here and passes to here. This little part here holds the thread, which comes out like this. It keeps unthreading and continues through this angle. We need to check here in this part that it isn't broken, doesn't have a wear or edges, because it will break the thread. We see that this part usually wears out, and we should do the same with sandpaper and discard the bobbin case. And the involved pieces is the part of the feed dog. Remember, the thread comes out this side and goes up and touches this bottom part of the feed dog. Likewise, we should discard this part if there is a burr thread, if there is one. We should use sandpaper here. We see there's a little bit of burr thread. We can see it, and we do it towards the angle where the thread is. We do it with sandpaper, and this way we discard the feed dog. Continuing with the pressure foot. Remember, pressure foot or foot lifter goes over the thread and helps tension the thread with the fabric and also holds it. There's a lot of wear in this area. We should also analyze if we can recover it by polishing with sandpaper, removing the thread and everything, or if we must replace it because it's already too worn out. Another piece that wears out a lot that we have to recover. The needle blade is also heavily involved in thread cutting. This part where the thread exits and the needle goes up and down suffers a lot of wear. We can see a bit of wear, and we need to check if we can fix it. With sandpaper we can remove that wear or decide if we need to replace it, since this is another part heavily involved when we face thread breaks. Now let's move to the most important part, the bobbin case. The bobbin case can cause thread breaks if it's misaligned with the needle. Remember, the bobbin case tip must pass over the needle at a minimum distance of 0.5. If it passes through or below the needle eye, it will cause thread breaks. So it needs to be well synchronized. Also, let's turn it around. Same here. The bobbin case tip can become sharp or rough. We should also use sandpaper and examine it carefully. Check it well. If the tip is too sharp or rough, it has burrs and can cause thread breaks. Remember, this part hooks the thread, and if it has any sharpness or burrs, it will break the thread and ruin the seam.